Welcome back to Virtual Visits with the President. I hope you've seen the previous two virtual visits we've done, and I am happy to welcome another wonderful guest today, Matt Sayre, our Director of Athletics. And remember, if there's someone that you would like for me to talk with, all you have to do is send an email to presidentsoffice@sou.edu with virtual visits question in the subject line, and we will respond. So, Matt, how are you doing?
Hi, boss. I'm doing okay. I like the way we're both coming out of Raider Stadium right now with our hair kind of moving as we're doing it, which is cool. Doing okay-ish. I think that's always ended with the ish right now. It's kind of the famous words of Pat Summitt, the famous basketball coach from University of Tennessee. It is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So I think that's the kind of the way we're living with this right now in the athletic world, for sure.
I really like that. I'm going to have to keep that in mind too. So there have been a lot of changes in your world, Matt. I know it came as a shock when you had to call teams back from national championships. Tell me a little bit about how everything's going over there in athletics.
Yeah, it's been 8 weeks of thinking about nothing but COVID-19 and how to adjust to that and make sure that our student athletes are still engaged and getting the support they need, and the recruiting is still going strong, and the coaches are feeling good about light at the end of the tunnel. I think is important. We obviously had a tough go of it in the spring with our national championship contending softball team and our track and field team, and going out there on the field and talking to them about their seasons being ended. It was one of the tougher conversations I've had with sports teams. I think I liken it almost to when I had to talk to the football team about Coach Howard and his passing. I mean, those just tough conversations that you don't want to have. But they realized what we were up against, and there's, again, like I said, light at the end of the tunnel for those seniors to come back. And we've gotten some good feedback, and we know we're getting a few of those seniors to come back and return next spring and play softball for us and run track and field for us. And then it's really just been the only thing that's really different for us right now, Linda, is just nobody's going out onto the field with a whistle right now, but everything seems to kind of be the same. And there's a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, a lot of academic support, a lot of recruiting that's still going on. So other than not being able to see each other face to face and going out on the field, it's fairly much business as usual, I guess.
So Matt, I have a feeling folks who aren't familiar with your operations are probably wondering, how do you do recruiting virtually? So can you talk us through that a little bit, and how's it going? Are students responding? Student athletes still want to come to SOU?
Yeah, we are looking at our highest number of student athletes ever reporting fall 2020, if we have a fall 2020. But we've got huge numbers of student athletes wanting to be part of our program, and so the recruiting's gone really well. And our coaches have discovered a few things with this virtual world. They're doing in-home visits with the parents and the student athletes through Zoom, and we've never done that before. What a great way to get in and talk to the parents and get to know them and answer the questions and get to experience home life virtually with them, which is a really cool thing.
You told me that some of the coaches are having national figures Zoom in to meet with the student athletes?
Yeah, we've got like David Carmichael, our men's soccer coach, has had, I think, 3 now professional soccer players playing in the UK who have come into a Zoom call with the team. And the great thing that the coaches are doing is our committed recruits and the team are all included in the Zoom calls. And they get to ask these professional soccer players about how they're maintaining their mental health, their physical health, questions about how they scored a hat trick against, Chelsea back in 1998, whatever it was. It's really pretty cool. And they can splice in film and footage of them playing and talk the guys through it. That's been really pretty neat. We've had guest speakers for just about every one of our programs that call in with our teams as they're going through their virtual practice, and just talk to them about anything from character values to mental health, and then of course to how to score more soccer goals. So it's been good.
You know, that's really consistent with what I'm hearing from instructors too. I know I had the pleasure of Zooming into Andrew Gay's one of his classes, and he was doing something similar by bringing in distinguished filmmakers to talk with our students. So we're all learning new ways of doing things that some of which we'll continue doing once this is all over.
Yeah, that's right. We've had you as a guest speaker in our coaches meetings. Have you had a chance to talk to a group of students?
I have been meeting with students in classes. I recently visited Dr. Larry Gibbs' sociology class, and it was really interesting because it was on the social determinants of health. And boy, the students have a real life experience they're going through right now that they can apply what they're learning in that class. So I'm enjoying. I've also been in a few student life activities, so that's been good. So Matt, everybody wants to know what's going to happen in the fall. I'm sure you have a crystal ball that's gonna tell you. So you know, I know that from my perspective, what's most important to me is that our students and our employees, whether they're in athletics or academics, are going to be safe and healthy. And you know, that's my absolute. Then the second thing is I want us to be back in person, enjoying each other's company, playing games, competing, if we're able to do so. But of course, we're following the governor's guidance. So how are you thinking about bringing teams back and what might happen in the fall?
Yeah, so we're working hard on the phased approach as we look at those three separate phases, you know, about how we would curtail activities and do workouts, practices, and eventually competitions with social distancing in mind and the health of our student athletes and coaches. So there's lots of indications right now about what that timeline might look like. And the governor came out today and said September 1st and through September, you know, that events will be curtailed. That doesn't mean they necessarily have to be banned. So basically looking at competition in particular, you can probably move some teams into competition before other teams. And that really goes for cross country, to soccer, volleyball, some of those non-contact sports. And then probably football is our biggest question mark right now with the contact and when we would be ready to go with that. You know, I was thinking about it today. It's a lot like, this situation is a lot like the microcosm of the smoke that we had with wildfires a couple summers ago. And back then, it was a week ahead of time, and we were trying to make a forecast on whether we would have a football game or a soccer match with all the smoke. And you had to make a decision on Tuesday of the week that the game was going to be on a Saturday. And you know, you'd be a genius or an idiot depending on what the smoke did. And you just can't tell what the smoke's going to do. And just like you said, the number one priority for us is the health of our student athletes. So the same thing with this coronavirus. We just don't know what it's going to do. And you can't really be firm unless you say, we're just not going to do anything. And nobody wants that at this point. We want there to be some hope for a season. So we are looking at each phase. So the governor announced we'll be in the phase 1. So we're looking at what that looks like for basically strength and conditioning for our student athletes. We won't be doing any practicing. Then if we move into phase 2, then we can get into some more structured workouts again with social distancing in mind, probably some light work as far as teamwork, but you know, trying to keep that distance. And then phase 3 is when we can get back to normal. The tricky thing for, you know, athletics is rather than just on a state basis, I mean, we have to depend on other states, other conferences, other teams to be able to go as well. And that's going to be the tricky part to figure out, is how the NAIA is going to look at a fall championship schedule and have everybody in line with that without, you know, anybody superseding that from their own institution and saying, yeah, we're out or we're in, or it's going to be tricky.
So Matt, we're in 2 different athletic conferences that cover different regions of the country. one for football and then the other for everything else. Will that make any difference, you think?
Yeah, it will. You have to take travel into consideration. We're having a conversation with our coaches this morning about some of our student athletes who are coming from those states. So we've signed some student athletes and they'll be coming from Montana, Idaho. And so what do we do with them as far as quarantine or testing? So those questions are still out there. We're not sure. But as far as playing in a season, I think everybody's determined to have a conference season. That's the first thing you take a look at and you say, okay, let's figure out a way to do some type of conference season. And I think everything beyond that will be gravy. So hopefully, we can come together as a conference in the Cascade, which, like you said, encompasses a couple of states and Canada, quite frankly. Can we have a conference season in cross country and volleyball and soccer? And then look into football, the Frontier Conference, Montana, Idaho, and Oregon. What does it look like for that? So lots of options.
Well, we just have to stay Raider strong. I know that the community is hoping that football will be back sometime next year. It's such an important part of the Ashland community, as well as soccer and volleyball. All of our sports have a lot of folks here in the Ashland area who follow them and really look forward to that. So they're all pulling for you. Matt, I wanted to ask you, I've heard rumors that you got into filmmaking and have made a wonderful little video. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, Kelly Mapsatson contacted me and said, can you do a little headshot of you saying welcome back and hey students, glad to have you back. And I think I've done 3 of those already. And so I said, well, let me see if I can try something different. So I had all my coaches kind of send me just a little shot of them with the Raider Hawk. And I don't know, I was here in my office by myself and feeling blue. So I walked around the facilities and just took some shots of the Raider Hawk and Raider Land, I guess you'd say. And then came up with some really bad video that I wanted to, and I think I put some disclaimers at the front that in no way should anybody see this as athletics' best, project. So it turned out.
I think you should let us be the judge of whether we like it or not, Matt. So we'll have to take a look at it.
Wisdom, courage, character.
Elliott Cook with 3 straight kills, and the Raiders are headed to the Cascade Collegiate Conference Championship. Side for 3, good! Duranda Hickey with a steal and the 3. The Raiders have the lead with 5.3 seconds to go. No flags on the field. Raiders will celebrate.
That was a great video, Matt. And it may not be your best work, but it was very creative. And I just want to assure our audience that no Raider Hawks were injured in the making of that video.
Yeah, that's the truth. And Linda, we need to figure out what the special effect would be from your hawk for next time.
Okay, you work on that and let me know.
Okay. Yeah, August is still a month that is causing us some consternation. We're not exactly sure what the month of August will look like. We do have some creative contingency plans with football to condense the season or delay the season. Basically, we're looking at a couple of options where we might delay the season until September 12th or September 5th as the start. That's a potential. And there's also, you know, a fallback potential for even a spring season if we needed to do that. So August will be tricky depending on when we start the season. You know, we want to at least have about 20 days of practice in before your first competition. So starting, you know, would be mid to late August, we would hopefully be able to get in and have practices if the season is continuing in September. And if not, or if it's into, you know, potentially even October as a start date, we would look at September as the time when we start practices. So lots to still discover there.
So Matt, we're part of the NAIA, and I know that the national office has been thinking hard about what the falls is going to look like. What's the latest you've heard from them?
Well, Jim Carr, the CEO of the NAIA, he put out an email a little bit ago just to talk about when they would make a decision about the fall. And he put a deadline of July 1st that they would make a determination about the fall. And what that really means is primarily, will we have championships in the fall? So volleyball, for us it would be volleyball, men's and women's soccer, cross country, and football. So we have those in the fall, and when will they be? Will they be delayed? Would they be set at the normal time? I think they're going to need to make a decision about if a school decides that they're not going to participate in postseason competition. Will they be, you know, penalized for that? I doubt it. I think they'll kind of say, you know what, in these times, the school has declared for postseason competition and can't do it. We understand. So they've still got a lot to sort through as well. I think there's a lot of, on my calendar, I see a lot of Zoom calls with NAIA reps and our Cascade conference. You know, the great thing that we've got here, we've got a great commissioner in Rob Cashel in the Cascade Conference and a great commissioner in Kent Paulson in the Frontier Conference, who are being very proactive about engaging us athletic directors to be creative and what do we think we can do in the face of this COVID-19 issue, and with the end goal of, yes, having our student athletes be safe, but giving them some form of competition within the conference. So those are to come.
Well, we all hope that everything will be back to full strength. I think we spoke a little bit earlier, Matt, about some of the positives that you've seen come out of this. You mentioned being able to talk to recruits and their families in their homes, and that's something you hadn't done before. Any other positives that you've seen come out of having to cope with this adversity?
You know, those things that we did talk about, but I've also seen, you know, our student athletes are, they've been structured for a lot of their careers, athletic careers. They've had practices from this time to this time, and they've had, you know, workouts. I think one of the upsides is this is testing them and forcing them to be more self-regulated, to find their own ways to stay in shape and exercise and be healthy. I think they've become, through the efforts of our coaches who are really trying to reach out to them with, we had our volleyball team had a great guest speaker. She's an alumnus of ours, Dolores Christensen, and she's at the University of Oklahoma right now. And she's a sports psychiatrist. And she had a great session with the volleyball team and talked about mental health, how to prepare mentally for this situation, but also how to make sure you are setting yourself a schedule in light of this. And finding ways to overcome it. Just like we said, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So trying to make the best of it. And, you know, you feel for our student athletes, they are active social people, and they want to be out, they want to be doing things. I think some self-control that they've exhibited has been impressive to watch. They're, you know, trying to maintain social distancing. I saw 2 football players driving down the road just a little bit ago, and they both had masks on, and they were in a car. So that's always good. So.
Well, that's great to hear, Matt. And I know you and the coaches, the assistant coaches, everybody's doing a great job of working with the student athletes, and they're doing their part to be ready whenever they get the chance to compete once again. I think this brings us to time today. Really appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while, Matt, and remind our viewers that we're happy to talk to other folks that you'd be interested in hearing from. Just send me a note at President's Office at sou.edu. Put virtual visits in the subject line, and we'll follow up and talk with whomever you'd like for us to talk to. We'll have another one of these sessions in a couple of weeks. Until then, stay strong, Raiders, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Linda.